Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
100 years. 100 years is how long LCMS has been doing campus ministry. We're going to talk about that today with none other than the Chancellor of LCMS U, the Reverend Marcus Zill, host of the Student Union here on KFUO. Pastor Zill, welcome.
Hi. Hey, great to be with you guys.
Always good to have the Chancellor with us on the Coffee Hour, and also celebrating another milestone this week as well. This week is also the 5th anniversary of the Student Union on KFUO, which is a milestone as well. So, two things about campus ministry to celebrate this week.
Absolutely.
So give us a bit of an overview, a brief history of LCMS Campus Ministry. Where did it all begin?
You know, that's a loaded question because right now I'm working on a book on this very topic. But it began at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Keep in mind, 100 years ago, that was the West Coast, not the West Coast, but that was the westward expansion. And in short, they began meeting the very first, it's actually not accurate to say campus ministry began with the first service because there was always a lot of things that kind of went into it. But in short, a lot of the Big Ten schools, as you think about them, were the very first where we had our, maybe our first 8 or 9 campus ministries were all at Big Ten schools. And in part it was because after the Morrill Land Act in 1816-2, all of a sudden, all these ag schools started up. People started going to school. Farm kids started going to school. Before that, it was kind of more of an elite kind of a thing that you did, and you would just go back east. And in essence, in time, people are like, wait a minute now. Our young people are starting to go to school. They're starting to go to get agricultural degrees. And they have access to schools that they never had before. And then following World War I, there was a greater interest and need with a lot of returning vets. And so many of our campus ministries started getting planted. And the first one was at the University of Wisconsin. And they met it was a joint Wisconsin Synod and Missouri Synod campus ministry. So the Wisconsin Synod is also celebrating 100 years of campus ministry this year. And on September 26th, 100 years ago, this fall, they had their very first service in a music hall on the University of Wisconsin campus.
I didn't realize I was going to get such a history lesson. This is really cool.
I love history. Can't help it.
Same. So what prompted
I'm a chancellor. I'm paid to love history.
What prompted the move to intentional ministry to college students?
Well, this is actually kind of fascinating. I was just talking with the campus pastor that's there at the University of Wisconsin today, and he uncovered some of the early kind of slogans that they had to try to build it up, and it was this was the one that they used to kind of get it going and to kind of get people motivated and to give towards the project. They need us today. We shall need them tomorrow. And so there is very much in that the idea that this is our future, and they were afraid, if you can imagine this, of sending their kids to these liberal colleges. 100 years ago, we could only wish for that, I suppose, in many ways now. But they wanted to make sure they kept the faith, that they stayed in the faith. And there was even a movement among many to say, how are we going to tell these farm kids to decide to go to seminary while they're at college if we don't have anybody there to tell them to do it? So there were, a lot of different motivations, but the biggest one was to keep them in the faith.
Hmm. So how has the Lord grown campus ministry from that one campus ministry in Wisconsin over 100 years to the many campus ministries we have today?
Well, boy, that's a complex question. In short, we now have 250 or 260 campus ministries. I can never remember. even though I'm paid the big bucks as a chancellor to know this information. But our campus ministries today, in a lot of ways, some would argue that, many of these campus ministries had 500-600 people back in the day. We don't have campus ministries anywhere near this size. So we have more of them. They're all scattered all over the place. But things have changed. We live in an increasingly post-Christian culture. You don't have access to students the way you used to. If you could imagine the University of Wisconsin-Madison, when they had their 25th anniversary, the president of the University of Wisconsin showed up to bring greetings at the anniversary celebration. That would be unheard of today. And so things have changed. So we have a much larger number of campus ministries, big and small, spread over the country. Not as many students as back in the days, as people like to speak of the glory years of maybe the 50s or so, 50s and 60s. But we have campus ministry insight and input and energy everywhere just the same.
What are some of the challenges facing campus ministry today?
Well, the opposite of having a real chancellor show up to your anniversary celebration. We have them many times working against things. It's very tough. The climate on campus, people are not saying, "Hey, look, Christians wanting to come on campus and wanting to reach out to their students and those that don't believe in God." No, it's a huge challenge, and of course, in this COVID-19 pandemic era, frankly, nobody knows what school's going to look like in the fall. And if that's true for regular workers on campus and students, it's even more true. It's also equally as true for campus ministry workers. I get asked every day, so what's it going to be like on campus this fall? What do I need to do different? And I'm like, I don't know.
The last
Because
time I was in a pandemic, we
yeah,
did.
so it's going to take a lot of creativity and to address those challenges, and we don't know what they're going to be like. I mean, who knows? Many statistics, or many people that are throwing statistics out are predicting that in 10, 15 years, 25% of our colleges and universities are going to flat out close. So campus ministry is probably going to have to going to ebb and flow a little bit, but we've always been had a lot of the most creative people, the dorkiest people, Chancellor. A lot of creativity, and it's going to take a lot of creativity to apply it to a new situation once we figure out what the new normal on campus is going to be.
Certainly a lot of creativity. I think some of that even involved coffee that we got to chat about in the past year as well, with some really unique campus ministry and student outreach on campuses as well.
Mm-hmm.
You've been hosting the Student Union for 5 years now on KFUO and podcasts on KFUO. How much fun are you having hosting the Student Union?
I remember when we started this, and somebody suggested, "Hey, you ought to think." And I'm like, "What, me?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I did. I was like, "I don't have any credentials to do a radio program," and so then I came up with the Chancellor. I just gave myself
Make your own.
Yeah, LCMS U is not a real university. I could have fake credentials. No, I love it. I love the creativity. I love being able to talk to people about all sorts of different things that are. In fact, this week, I'm having on the first gal who was a student at the time, who was my very first program, and I'm checking in with her to see how her life has changed. She went on to become a deaconess, got married, has had a kid with another and on a way, and her husband was just installed at a congregation in Michigan. So I think it's kind of fun to kind of take a different angle of showing people how times change, even among those that we serve. So I'm always looking for an interesting angle of how to kind of approach things for those that are interested in campus ministry and college people.
So what have you learned about campus ministry during this time that you've been producing and hosting the Student Union?
Well, in short, and I always say I love college students, but everybody's a college student in some form. They're either a pre-college student, a post-college student, a current college student. They care about college students. They know who college students are. Or increasingly in the future, they know college-age people, because in reality, that could be a challenge going forward. A lot of young people could just say, hey, I'm not going to college. And, we're not charged to care for them because they're in college. We're charged to care for them because they are young people at a transition, huge transition time in their life, period, whether it includes college or not. And so I've learned in reality that I could be the chancellor of everyone. I don't know how better to close it. No, it really is campus ministry, caring for people at this pivotal time in their life. It really takes all stakeholders, and everybody has a stakeholder in helping people to make their way through this tough transitory time into the other side, and keeping them in the faith.
I think one thing that I've learned from you and from the student union is how important local congregations are in campus ministry. If there's a congregation within a reasonable distance of a college or an institution, to be very intentional about being welcoming to those students and to reaching out to students in the community, especially those who are away from home too. I think that, just hearing that in so many of the stories that you share on the student union, how important that local congregation is really key.
Well, and it's going to be more important going forward as the dynamics of campus ministry change. Everybody thinks that campus ministry is about like the first one, where all of a sudden you just plotted a building, put it up, got a pastor, and there are 400 students showing up. Times have changed, but in reality, we have every tool in our toolkit to do campus ministry everywhere, because we're the church, and ultimately that's all young people want, is they want to be a part of the church and all that the church has to give, and to be welcomed, and to participate, and to join in serving their fellow neighbors on campus as well as in the local congregation. And I always tell people every congregation has everything they need to do campus ministry, because they are the church, and that's really what it's all about. It's really not all that different, even if it's at a unique time in somebody's life.
The Reverend Marcus Zill, Chancellor of LCMS U and host of the Student Union, celebrating 100 years of campus ministry and 5 years of the Student Union on KFUO. Pastor Zill, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.